Welcome to Study Buddy, meditation philosophy for the heart of your practice. This is a live online discussion of ancient yogic texts amongst meditation practitioners in the Shambhavananda Yoga tradition. My name is Acharya Satyam, resident teacher at Konalani Yoga Ashram in Hawaii, and I welcome you with love and respect. Namaste, welcome everyone. So good to be here with you for what appears to be our final Shiva Sutra class. And I was sort of reflecting a little bit before this class, and a scene came to me from a movie that maybe you all have seen, of the octopus teacher. And it's at the end of the octopus's life, and it knows it's sort of at the end, and it's really accomplished a lot. And it's not like we're at the end of our life, but we're at the end of this book, and it's been 4 years, and there's this feeling like we've done the work, you know, we put in the time, we've grown, and then at the end of this movie, the octopus is just sort of playing with bubbles in the water, and it's like the first time you see the octopus actually just playing. You know, it's like, usually it's like trying to survive, finding the next meal, you know, laying eggs, and all this stuff that it has to do and that it's genetically wired to do. And then there's this moment when it's just opening, playing, and existing. And it's sort of what I felt like, hey, we get to have that moment tonight. You know, we've done the work and we're here, and we get to just sort of open up and let the bubbles come up and play with what comes up, and just have fun with it, and let ourselves just sort of rest in that peacefulness, but yet that openness. So we are going to begin as we normally do, with a little callback to last week's sutra, which was the last sutra, 3.45. I'm going to pull that up on the screen so we can pronounce it together. I will spotlight myself in case anybody's on a mobile device, and then don't let me forget to go to gallery mode with all of you for our discussion. All right, so pronouncing Sutra 3.45, Bhuya Syat Prati Milanam. Bhuya Syat Prati Milanam. This yogi simultaneously and repeatedly experiences the revealing state and the concealing state of the objective world. The quote that concludes the sutra is that really sort of said a lot in summarizing this, was this one about this word repeatedly, bhuya, which is sort of an English word. Bhuya. And so it means to grasp this inner sensation of the world, to have this sort of the world arise from within, to have this experience, and then to have that world sort of like re-merge, or to almost like dissolve a little bit, and then to reopen to this experience of the world from the inside out again through our practice, and then having it just quietly dissolve again. And that we keep doing this over and over and over again. And the parallel, or sort of the metaphor that pervaded for us in our work, was this idea of literally we remember our true nature, and then we sort of forget it slowly and quietly, almost like you don't know when it happened. And then you realize you've forgotten on some level, whether that's maybe experiencing attention or just literally coming back to your cushion at a regular time, and you remember your true nature again through your practice. And that we do this repeatedly, and that's not a sign of missing something, but it's actually the way that the yogic tradition describes we're supposed to grow, meaning we're actually supposed to, or it's inherent that we will forget our true nature, and that will we remember. We will remember it, and that practice is what produces the overall, the eventual state of being that we seek. So this is, I found that to be very, well, it's simultaneously, liberating, in the sense where it's like, it's okay. It's okay for your mind to wander. It's okay for you to lose your center. It's actually going to happen. It's Maya, it's illusion. Um, but it's like also empowering in the sense that it's saying, okay, as soon as you recognize it, you have really one thing to do. And I'll conclude this little recap here with the idea that that one thing to do, this recalling or remembering Shiva, I felt like it really synthesized with the work that Babaji's been teaching this entire year, but of late, the last few months, very pointedly, of this less doership in our work. Because when I sit for a moment, we can just do it for a minute before we free write. And imagine the the idea of opening your heart, right? Or breathing into your heart. Let yourself do that by just remembering. Imagine just remembering your true nature, remembering your heart, remembering that joy exists, that clarity exists, that your center exists, remembering. And if it's a real memory, it doesn't just take place in your mind, it takes place in your being. When we get transported by a fragrance that floats through the air, it's not like it just exists as a sense memory in our nose. It brings us all the way back to an experience. So let yourself remember for a moment your true nature. You feel that effortless effort. You're doing something, yet you feel your shoulders relax, feel your whole body relax, like a warm water pouring over the back. And just let yourself continue to remember your true nature in this effortless effort way. And we'll take the next 2 minutes to write about the experience you literally could be having in this moment, or the experience that maybe you've cultivated over the last week of working with the sutra. And remember, there's no reason that when you start writing, you can't simultaneously recall this experience. There's really nothing keeping us from it except for our own yearning to do so. Okay, well, thank you. So I said a lot of little things like, oh, we're wrapping up, and oh, take time to do the keyword phrase thing, and oh, and if you didn't have a pen, write your word in the air. Um, there we go. That was the recap. That was like watching this show on 1.5 speed. All right. So, but we can write some words in the chat box. I can jot them. Actually, you can jot them. You have a chat box yourself for you three. That's what I meant. All right. And we will read out a few here.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, great. Here we go. I think you're muted.
Floating.
Flow.
Joy of rediscovery.
Play of Leela.
Another floating.
How does that happen?
Wow.
Colors and joy.
Surrender. That was my word, and I got to read it.
Stillness.
Feels a little like what spontaneous recognition would be like.
Effortless. Flowing.
Remembering.
You have to say it in all caps.
Remembering.
Excellent. All right, everyone. You know the routine. I ask everyone if you have anything to add, and then Bob raises his hand. So here we go. Anyone want to jump in with a comment or a question?
I have one.
Oh, in a change of pace today, we have a comment here.
I think maybe reading my word got me excited. I was really moved actually just now by what you were describing with remembering, because I think everyone here has probably had the experience. If you're like having a conversation, you forget what you're about to say, you can't make yourself remember, right? What do? You're like, oh, like, well, or this is what I do. I'm like, oh, I have to relax and it's probably going to bubble up, or I'll just trust that it wasn't very important. But it's so cool that like the remembering can't be forced. It like has to be allowed. So I just really loved, Satyam, that you really honed in on that, because it helped me really like feel the energy and the quality that it takes to like allow our true nature to bubble up. And that's why my word was surrender. I think Yogita raised her
I just
hand.
wanted to comment on that before we move on. That's great. And Yogita, if you're going to comment on that, go for it too. I think that quality is what makes it so fun to practice. You know, it's like, I know it's not fun to lose your keys. So we're not used to thinking about remembering something or finding something you lost as being fun, you know, but there is something really fun about this idea. It's almost like hide and go seek, right? That's a fun game. That's a game where you literally, the game is hide something from me and then I'm going to try and find it. And it's fun. And we all loved that game. If you didn't like the game as a kid, I'm sorry, you must have had a bad experience with it, because most people love that game.
Next time you come to Konalani, epic hide and go seek is
so
happening. Just FYI.
So there's something really, really fun about just not knowing where something is and having to look. And all of a sudden, your living room, which used to look like a normal living room, is all of a sudden like you're interested, you're looking, you're feeling.
Can I say something back? So a lot of you were there when we started the Shiva Sutras, and there's this like the big kind of elephant in the room when we talk about the creation of the universe is like, why did Shiva do all this? Like, there's not really like a clear answer. And I feel like the sutras say, like, for the joy of rediscovering Shiva nature. And, I live with Satyam, so I get to talk about philosophy outside of this class a lot. And I feel like we were both like, oh, that's like a pretty good answer, I guess. But here we are 4 years later, and the answer that you just gave me is like, oh, rediscovering something is awesome. Shiva maybe did do all this for that joy. You know what I mean? So, anyway, maybe the Shiva Sutra sunk in after all.
So
My
maybe
my caps was
having attention, is just the experience of not knowing where your heart is in that moment. And there's a way that we can work with it, really skillfully, through this sutra and through our practice by just having a little bit of fun with like trying to find that center, find our heart again when we're in those challenging, or as Yogita wrote to me in an email about her favorite sutra, even in the good times, when you're crafting, but you just sort of forget, you're just sort of in your thing. Speaking of Yogita, why don't you take it away there with your comment? Oh, and I apologize. We have a funny audio setup so I can see that it's not working. And go for it, Yogita.
well, first of all, the caps was accidentally on. I didn't mean to put it in big letters, but what I've been working with is some activities help me remember, and other activities seem to be take me more away from the inner self. And which things, of course, meditating brings you closer, but then sometimes I get real busy cleaning a house or doing crafts or something. And then at the end, I think, I didn't think about the inner self at all, and so that's what I've been working with is I always had a hard time when Baba said everything it has it's the inner self. Everything is blissful. It's the same. That, and I said, well, how can eating chocolate cake on your birthday be the same thing as having the flu? But if you're inside, then that's what's the same. The inner self is still the same. So that's it.
Thanks, Yogita. I'm trying to sit with that for a moment. You bring up a good point. This idea of some things help us, some things distract us from that capacity to remember. But in reality, we have the ability to do it in all situations. It's just some situations seem to have these karmic relationships to us that sort of cause us to forget, or even just to not recall in that moment. And it's good times and challenging times. They both can have the same effect. Yeah, I mean, and I think there's something to this where we don't want to make it into an act of doership where we feel like we're actually trying to remember, oh, I'm doing this craft, but I'm going to try and remember, and I'm going to try and remember, every time I'm doing this action, and it starts to be like, yeah, we can start like that, but it feels like that surface level quality of like, I'm gonna do this for this end to this end. It's like it's only like pointing us in the right direction, but I feel like we don't ever want to have that be the practice we're trying to accomplish. Like we want to start in that direction. We gotta nudge ourselves sometimes, but I feel like Babaji keeps trying to teach us that there's this natural state to it. There's a relaxed part of it. And I wonder, like when you're knitting or crafting, you mentioned, and it's just like this gentle, not recalling my true nature. Like, what is it that's going to get us to recall our true nature in those comfortable times? Like, is it going to be like some top down experience where we're like, I want it to be like this? Or I wonder, once we surrender that and we sort of come at it from the inside out, if it'll have a different effect. Because I think I'm sort of like you in that I think we've got a little bit of pitta, me and you, where we want to like I know the way I want to go, and I know when I want to get there. Um, so working with that skillfully. Was there any other comments or questions on this sutra? Anyone, or you want to riff off of those comments or questions?
Just because it's expected of me, I
Yes,
thought
yes.
to jump in, and I just say that, well, I was a little kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I used to get up in the morning. It was really cold, so I'd wrap a blanket around myself and I'd sit on the floor duct where the hot air was coming out.
Nice.
It was behind my father's chair, and I would just wrap this around me, and I would close my eyes, and this beautiful kind of feeling would come over my heart. And years later, when Muktananda, Baba took us to see Muktananda, and he gave us the Hamsa meditation, I was like, oh, wow, there's my friend. I haven't seen it for so long. And then it started happening more and more with Baba, sitting and meditating with Baba, or sitting by myself. But it just feels like, you forget and you remember, but it's just like remembering an old friend, and it's always there. And just the joy of remembering that friend is what pulls you back. I notice, if I'm in the middle of something and I'll just suddenly out of the blue go, oh, where's my friend, or whatever, and then bang, it pulls me back, and I'm just very grateful for that. Also, I wish that this this particular sutra should be engraved over the shrine room door, so that everybody who comes, uh, every beginner yogi should know it's okay. It's okay. You're going to remember and you're going to forget. You're going to remember and you're going to, but it's all going to be beautiful.
Thanks, Bob. I like what you said about remembering a friend. That really, I feel like it really cuts right to what I was trying to put into words before. And I think you just said it so eloquently, and from a space of practice, that it's like remembering a friend. Like, how effortless is that, and how joyful is that, and how instant, and how possible that is to do. And I guess that is the gratitude practice in a nutshell,
Marcella.
Oh, great. Marcella.
Hey,
Hey.
I've been following along on the YouTube videos since it's so late for me here, but since it was the last one, I was like, I really want to get to class.
Awesome.
So I've just wanted to say that I've noticed this past week working with the sutra that it's always been a goal to try to remember my practice throughout the day, but just having that specific sutra to work with, and just kind of it being okay to forget, and not feeling like, oh darn, I forgot whenever it comes up. Instead, it's more of oh yay, I remembered, whenever you remember. And then after doing that, it's kind of like what you said last week about the more you recall things, the better you remember them. And so it's just been more coming up more often throughout the day, just because it's just kind of snowball. It's a snowball effect, the more you remember, the more you remember. And so it's been cool.
Thanks, Marcella. It's so great to see you live. And we've been emailing back and forth about some ideas for other topics for us to explore, and it's just wonderful to see you. Thank you for bringing that point home. I feel like I might say it like it's okay to forget, but I feel like what you did this last week, and then the energy that you just brought to that comment, actually helped that land in me, where I really do feel like it is okay, because I actually have trouble with being like, it's okay that I I'm totally distracted right now. I do have trouble like with that, with being cool with that, or with, that resilient kind of quality. And just hearing you say like, yay, I remember, it really is possible, especially when we're sitting here reading according to the tradition, like Shiva wrote these sutras. You don't have to ascribe to that. That's pretty big. And, there's like a mythological aspect to it that might be like, I don't know about that. But for me, that's where it lands. And I'm sitting here like literally seeing like Shiva's last sutra that was written on this stone was, you're going to forget and then you're going to remember. And that's how it's actually planned. And that's how you actually grow, and I feel like your comment actually helped me realize that, like take that to heart. So thank you. Anyone else? Any comments or questions? I see Shoshone unmuting, so it might be an overactive camera, but give it a shot either way. Wave your hand if you're trying to talk right now, Shoshone. You are trying to talk. Okay, cool. Does anybody else hear them? No. Okay, cool. So we're all in the same boat. We can't hear Shoshone. Great to see y'all.
Oh, wait, I think
we
I
heard
heard something.
Sorry,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Maybe I'll turn on my video.
Right on.
All right. Hello. It's been a while
Hello.
since
Hello.
I've done this.
Oh,
Okay.
Tashi, are you in the void right now?
I'm in the back. Yeah, I'm in the back corner of the temple where you never look.
Who knew it was that far away?
And there's a spotlight.
Welcome to the void. No, so this sutra about remembering and forgetting sort of made me think about the Yoga Sutras, because we were just going over this today in the philosophy class and the training that we're doing here. And when Patanjali says memory is, we were going over the aspects of the mind and how memory is the unaltered experience of something in the past. And I think that was very interesting. Just the word unaltered really is standing out to me a lot in that definition of memory. And I think when we like try and recreate the experience, like you were sort of talking about not doing such, it seems like that is an altered experience of something that we were trying to remember. And Vaya, how you were talking about how whenever we let go and it flows through, then that's when it sort of comes up. It's like, oh, there it is. And so I just found it interesting that Patanjali sort of nods to this, and that it's unaltered, and maybe that's what it means. Because I'm always like, what does he mean by that? How can we experience something like that? That's an unaltered recollection, and something that's pure. Because often I remember Coca-Cola tasting amazing, but if I have one, it's not normally that great. So I'm like, what is that, and why is it not as great as I remember? And so I think a present experience maybe of something that we just forgot is different than an idea of what we think was good for us maybe. But anyway, that's sort of what came up for me.
Thanks, Tashi. So good to see you and hear your voice. Really fun. It just takes me back to a couple weeks ago when you were here. Thanks for chiming in today.
He just ate the last biscuit.
Oh yeah, just ate
my
the last
goodness.
biscuit.
Oh, don't worry, they were in the freezer.
Butter and bread, that'll do it.
But your comment about the experience, thank you for giving that sort of example of the Coca-Cola comment. And it's hard to plug something, you say something, everybody's thinking, I want to Coca-Cola. How your memory of that is this one thing, and then you have it again, it's not that what. So like, where's the experience? And it just made me realize, oh, the experience that you have of that beverage is not actually in the beverage. And that's why it can be an experience of amazing when it maybe doesn't line up like that years later, or even if you had two or three of them in a row, it'd be like gross by the second one. Um, and so, yeah, it just sort of points us towards this experience that we're seeking with Shiva or with gratitude might not be, we start gratitude with an object, but we don't end there. Ideally, that's a stepping stone, and because the experience we're actually seeking to cultivate gratitude, we don't want to stop at the physical sensation per se of this beverage. Like, oh, I remember it being so good. It's like, well, I don't want to stop there. I want to like actually re-experience the actual joy that was in me then and is in me now, um, through that stepping stone. So maybe that's the kind of memory that we're seeking, and that's the kind of, like, through our practice, that's the kind of remembering of Shiva that we're seeking, is that subtle experience that isn't actually the things. It might start there, but doesn't end there. So thanks for bringing that up. Might have seen another hand, unless there was a follow-up comment there.
It's me.
Go for it, Usha.
I just had this feeling, could this unaltered memory be memory in the present? So like I guess that would be like a bias said, or that something that just flashes up, and so it's unaltered. It's before you make any, judgments of it. It's just like, it's like a flash or an unaltered memory.
Thank you. I think that absolutely. I mean, how many times have we seen in the sutras the experience of Shiva is described literally with the word flash, spontaneous recognition, and that this is how it's meant to be revealed. It's not necessarily meant to be revealed like in this logical step-by-step way. Yeah, it's a great example of the kind of memory we're seeking and what it takes to actually have those arrive. Dharma.
I'm finding some like permission in this sutra that that maybe is reassuring and helpful for me, that like it will happen again. I will forget. And that's okay. That's part of the design. And I can bring compassion to myself in that moment. And I like that. Like that feels a lot better than the alternative sometimes, which is, the I should, or, having the judgments. So instead just, like the remembering, right? Oh, good. So that feels nice.
Yeah, it feels a lot like how Babaji's telling us to practice now, like the way you're describing it. Just putting that into action, Dharma, just sort of breathing with that, oh yeah, that feeling. Thank you for sharing that, because it's very palpable and helpful. It seems to be a natural shifting moment. uh, let's. Here's the thing. Sort of, there isn't a new presentation today, of course. Um, we were gonna say like, oh, what's your, let's remember a few of our favorite
Mhm.
sutras. But I feel like with only about 4 minutes left until we would normally meditate, that would be a little rushed. So instead, why don't we stand up, stretch out, move out a little bit, and then just sit for a little extra time together. Does that sound okay? A couple extra minutes. Great. Okay, cool. So yeah, stretch out your legs, move around a little bit, and we'll prepare to remember our true nature together. Whenever y'all are ready, we can settle back in. Fine. All right. So what if we use this concept of remembering as in a physical way? The idea of remembering stillness, recalling stillness. What would that be like? What if you knew how to be perfectly still, intuitively? You've already accomplished it. You're Shiva. It's totally there in spades. And all you have to do is remember it, recall it. How would you approach stillness then? Remember how we talked about trying to recall something when you don't really know where it is. We don't really know where that memory is, where that answer is, and how you have to soften. You have to be sort of supple. And you have to be prepared to receive it. It's fun to put this into effect in a physical way because you can literally ask yourself to do it, to practice this. What does stillness feel like? Trying to remember. Is this it? You will move. You will forget. And that's okay. You just recall it. Again, effortless effort of stillness, perseverance without tension. And of course, our next step is to feel the breath. Your breath flows naturally and automatically in a very balanced way, in a way that we could never logically reproduce by any effort. Most of our work with the breath is trying to let it move, let it go, without losing our awareness of it. And as we repeat the mantra, hum, sa, hum with the inhale, sa with the exhale, it's the practice of recalling our true nature, one breath at a time, over and over. I am that. I am that. I am that. And as you repeat the mantra and feel the breath, and try to allow yourself to work from this nebulous space. Generally, we have forgotten our true nature. And so we have to stay really supple inside. in order to allow it to surface. As you continue to breathe and repeat your mantra, remember these keys to the heart that we seem to have lost are absolutely inside us. It's not like a normal life where you're not sure if they're in the room you're looking. They're in this room. They're in the present moment, without a doubt. And so you can breathe with reassurance. You still have to look. You still have to seek. But this state that you're seeking is inside you. And how you find it is what actually makes you grow. Let each inhale draw your awareness in towards the center of the heart naturally. And as you exhale, let that space of the heart gently expand. Don't become too drawn into your own effort here. Try to feel the natural effort of your breath and harmonize with that. But in order to recall, in order to remember this true nature that exists in our heart, we have to go there. We have to roam around in it. And so let your awareness sink down with each breath in, again, naturally, without doership. And let that space gently expand as you exhale. Imagine your breath as footsteps as you roam. And if you can feel your breath, then you can feel the effortless effort of this gentle work. It's as gentle as walking, as roaming. And take the last minute or so here to allow that slight smile to permeate the heart. And to feel the quality of your experience. Many times memories exist in the mind. You might just be triggering a pattern of some scar of some sort, but this is a different kind of remembering. This is remembering at the heart level. And so spending your time remembering your true nature, it's almost like being completely transposed. There's a different layer of your being. And remember, the last line of the sutra said, practicing in this way, repeatedly taking the experience out and then bringing it back to your true nature, is intended for knowing this very state of being. State of being, the last 3 words in the Shiva Sutras. So notice your state of being. No, it's the practice that cultivates the state of being. It can be described in many ways and in many sutras, but it's always going to come back to this repetitious, yet quality-filled experience. And that is what yields our state of being. So we'll conclude there. Namaste. And I wanted to take the very last minute to ask a question of everybody who's here right now. Would anyone like to have one more class in a couple of weeks? Next week we have a teaching moments class, but in 2 weeks, and give yourself a couple of weeks right now to look back over the 3rd upaya, and maybe there's 45 of them, so maybe just see which one sticks out to you and prepare a couple of sentences to share why. Just let us work with that. By a raise of hands, does anyone feel like that would be worthwhile to you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a majority, folks. Okay. So let's do it. I think 4 years with the Shiva Sutras merits at least one class just for fun review.
Bubbles.
Because this one was literally just about last sutra. Everybody just sort of stepped up and it was amazing. So yeah, let's do it. So in 2 weeks, come with, and who knows, if we don't get to them all, there may be 2 classes. Come with your favorite sutra and a little bit about why. Why does it jump out to you? I'll tell you, when I was looking back at the 3rd upaya in context of this class, I literally just read through the sutras and it was just like 1 or 2, just I saw them. And I was like, oh, why am I seeing this one? And then I looked in the chapter and I was like, oh yeah, that was really fun. And oh yeah, I still do work with that. So anyway, thanks for your extra 2 minutes of life. Here we go. See you in 2 weeks. Tune in next week for Teaching Moments presentation. See you then.